kéré o, wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be jazz. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. I'm no kwa, Osinachi. One name, Osinachi. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. Mama, Osinachi.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be jazz. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. I'm no kwa, Osinachi. One name, Osinachi. I'm watching. Osinachi, mama, Osinachi. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be jazz. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. I'm no kwa, Osinachi. One name, Osinachi. I'm watching. Osinachi, mama, Osinachi.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be jazz. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. I'm no kwa, Osinachi. One name, Osinachi. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. Mama, Osinachi.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be jazz. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi, Namnukwa, Osinachi. One name, Osinachi, I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi, Mama, Osinachi.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is, I believe, 1 p.m. West African time. So please, let's wait for maybe another 1 minute to make sure that all our panelists are here. Just to be sure. I'm seeing Bright Aluzie here. Esther is here. It's good. Okay, let me just. That's. I don't think we have all the presenters yet. I can only see 2. Am I correct? Bright, are you here?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
good. Okay. Thank you.
No, hi.
Okay, Esther is here too. That's good. Well done. Yeah. Well, so we're waiting for 2 panelists, right?
I guess so.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Warm greetings, everyone.
Hi, Esther.
Yes.
Hi.
Well, we do have about we have maybe 12 others who have already joined us.
That's interesting.
My intention is to go by the names of the people. Okay, Damilola is joining us. That's good. I think the time difference may be making people just waking up in North America. Hello, Damilola, how are you? Great, welcome. Is your audio enabled? Dr. Debayo, is your audio enabled? Can you say something so I know that I can hear you? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So now we are waiting. Okay, I think we should just start. Good afternoon, everyone. On this side of the ocean, Nigerian time, and good morning in North America. My name is Akin Ogunduran. I'm the moderator and chair of this session on a very important topic. I call it professional development, and we are titled Academic Job Hunting in North America. I will be joined by 4 colleagues who are going to guide us on various topics, including issues that many young colleagues tend to face, such as writing cover letter for academic appointments, formatting CV, preparing for interview, completing their dissertation, even when the job is at hand, they have to finish their dissertation before they start, revising their thesis into manuscripts, soliciting letters of recommendation, and what kinds of information should be in those letters of recommendation, how to craft research and teaching statements and philosophy, mock interviews, why it is important to do mock interviews, what does it mean when you are being invited to campus, teaching demonstration, what does that mean when you are asked to give a teaching demonstration, and also given research talk, what are the do's and don'ts. These are the kind of topics that our colleagues are going to share with us this afternoon. And my name is Akin Ogunduran. As I said, I am a professor at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. I will introduce all the speakers, and then I'll call on them based on the way their names are arranged on the program. Let me start with Dr. Damilola, an assistant professor of history at York University, Toronto, Canada. He is a student of Anglophone West Africa, particularly Nigeria. His research and teaching interests are at the intersection of social and economic history, as well as the science, technology, and society, STS. He is currently working on a book monograph tentatively titled Power to the People, Electricity and Urban Life in 20th Century Nigeria. The second speaker is Dr. Esther Oluwashina Ajayi-Lowo, who is currently an assistant professor of women's studies in the comparative women's studies program at Spelman College. Dr. Ajayi-Lowo holds a PhD and MA in multicultural women's and gender studies from Texas Women's University. Before a sojourn in academia, I don't think that's a sojourn, but it's okay. She worked for over a decade on health, gender, human rights, and development issues with non-governmental and governmental organizations. Dr. Ajayi-Lowo joined Spelman in August 2021. Her recent scholarly research focuses on birth and reproductive justice for Black women of African descent at the intersection of race, gender, and nationality. Our third speaker will be Dr. Lani Akande, who completed his PhD in cinema and media arts from York University in 2021, that is in Canada. He is currently revising his doctoral thesis titled Nollywood Film Industry, Informal Film Practices and Their Cultural Formations into a book manuscript. His articles have appeared in Journal of African Cultural Studies, Film Education, and Quarterly Review of Film and Video. He joins the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, my sister institution, as Assistant Professor of Film in August 2022, just about 2 months away. Last but not the least is Dr. Bright Halozie. He is an Assistant Professor in the Black Studies Department and an affiliate faculty in the Department of History at Portland State University, Portland, Oregon. He is also Associate Director of the Black Studies Center at Portland State University. Dr. Halozie is currently working on 2 books. One is titled Voices in Ink, Petition Writing and the Colonial State in Igbo Land, Nigeria, to be published next year by Indiana University Press. And the second book is titled Books in Public, Thoughts in Parliament, a book of poems, to be published next year by Colorado State University Press. Each speaker will have 15 minutes or less. to give their presentation, and then we'll have about 25 to 30 minutes for Q&A and comments. Dr. Adebayo, it's your turn.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Say it again.
Louder.
Can everyone hear me? Is it clear now?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me on this panel. I think it's a big deal to be surrounded by brilliant scholars and senior colleagues. I mean, the panel being chaired by Professor Mudira, and I consider it a privilege to share my experience transitioning from graduate studies to a faculty or a tenure track faculty role. And my focus this afternoon is actually going to be on, I'm not really going to be addressing, I'm not going to be giving like a list, a to-do list, or like a prescription of what to do to get a job. I feel like there are better speakers who can do that, probably because they've sat in several such committees. I'm only going to be talking from my experience as a candidate, and at least to successful positions. So I'm currently at York University in Ontario, Canada, as an assistant professor of history. But prior to that, I had another job which I had accepted, but did not, couldn't resume because the York offer came. So in the US, actually at North Carolina, Wilmington. So basically, I think I do have an understanding of the North American system. Nevertheless, I'm not going to be focusing on those who are already about to apply for jobs. I think other people can talk on that. I'm basically going to be focusing on those who are still addressing my audience today, people who are still, say, in the second or third year of their PhDs and are just beginning to think about the job market. And the reason I'm adopting this approach is because I realized that transitioning effectively from the tenure track to from graduate studies to the tenure track is a long-term process, and people don't realize that there are several aspects. It's more like just think of it as a tripod stand, as a chair with three stands. Some people tend to focus more on one aspect. People tend to focus on research. I want the best research, and then that would get me a job. Some would focus on publication, just publish, and then some other people would just focus on getting as many teaching experience as possible, like through teaching several courses. But I want to even take a step further and address people who are in the second and third year of their graduate studies, because that's the stage in which people are just beginning to think about their life. And the reason I'm doing this is because of my own personal story. I'm drawing from my personal my experience. That's what I'm drawing from. It might not work for everyone, but I hope it works for a few people. I studied in the UK. I studied at Cambridge in the UK. And forget about the fact that I went to Cambridge. It's a big deal in the sense that it opened some doors, but I also had several colleagues who are actually still open by God's grace to get to where I am, and some who are already ahead of me in that sense. I mean, just the way life is. But the reason I'm saying that is that to go into that school alone was just a point, like in a checkbox. It wasn't anything really. I mean, but the main reason for citing that I went to Cambridge is because for someone who studied in the UK and for the person to successfully get a job in both the US and in Canada, then it means that the person understands the North American market to some extent. Really, it can be a fluke. It can be a fluke to navigate both successfully and decide to choose Canada. And I would say for those at the early stage of their PhDs, I'm not trying to be prescriptive, and I'm not trying to sell a book, and I'm not trying to promote a single book, but a book that I found extremely useful for me at that phase of my life is a book entitled "The Professor is Him." And everyone that I've spoken to on a one-to-one basis would attest to the fact that I keep recommending the book over and over and over again. And it is because the book is more like a job market Bible for the North American humanities market. It's got every chapter of the book is tailored to address several aspects of your life. And it's useful that you read the book when you're still like in the middle of the PhD, as opposed to when you're already at the tail end. If you're already at the tail end, I'm sure other books would address that part, what you need to do. But if you are still in the middle of a PhD, it shows you everything that you need to do as a long-term strategy, like as a 2 to 3 year strategy. So, and the title of the book is "The Professor is In." Literally, the professor is in. It also has Bright has also posted in the chat. The Professor is In is also the title of a blog that the author maintains. She also has a Twitter link with "The Professor is In." She has a Facebook group. See, the author has received a lot of backlash for several. Don't bother with that, please. Just read the book, take the content. I mean, the reason the author has received a lot of backlash is because some people believe maybe she shouldn't be selling that knowledge, But don't worry about that. Just take the knowledge and work with it, and it would help you to plan. In fact, this is the only point that I would make. It's sufficient as far as I am concerned. It's sufficient from my end, really. And because it's a long-term strategy. People don't get multiple offers as a matter of luck. People get multiple offers. There's a grace factor for those who are religious. It's a great factor. Yes, there's a luck factor, but there is also the preparation factor. But there's also the strategy factor. Now, 3 aspects to the tenure track job. When such committees are recruiting a graduate student to fill a tenure track position, they're not seeking to recruit a graduate student. They are seeking to recruit a colleague. So if you're not already thinking in the long term form, if you're not already
I think we're having difficulty with Dr. Okay, right? We lost him, right?
Yes, I think we did. So just for
okay. My apologies, our apologies on behalf of LSA for that. Sure, he's trying to get back to us. Let's give him about a minute, please. So we don't break that train of thoughts he's sharing with us. Let me pause my timer here.
Sorry, I apologize for that. I guess it's my internet. Can you hear me now? Or is someone already saying something?
You still have the floor.
I sincerely apologize. I just realized that I was cut off while mid sentence. Yeah, but as you can tell by my background,
Dr. Adebayo was stressing that this professor is Bible of members of the audience, and I will read them.
The last thing you heard, but I was emphasizing.
Okay. Okay. We are I think
it's a
Dr.
long-term
Deba is trying to get there.
to the tenure track. Now, I'm not promising that what I'm about to share will. All I'm going to share is just maybe like 1 or 2 minutes. This is just a build up and recommending.
Okay. Dr. Debayo, are you back now? Okay, you are back.
Once again, I apologize. I have no idea why this is happening, but if I hope it doesn't happen again. I really hope. Maybe I should.
I'm sorry, I did not. Did you say something to me?
But at least I hope it works for a few people. I hope it serves you. And so, as I was mentioning, when such committees are recruiting, they're not seeking to recruit a graduate student. They're seeking to recruit a colleague. Can you still hear me? Can you please confirm if you can hear me? Okay, thank you. So when they're trying to recruit, they're trying to recruit a colleague. So in other words, it means that the biggest one of the biggest advice that is often given, and I understand that people tend to give this advice a lot, and it's well-meaning. The advice that you should, because the typical graduate student, especially when they're on the job market, so no matter how confident they are, no matter how confident their facade, the big looks, there is an the tension, there is a concern within, there is an anxiety that am I going to get a job? Oh yes, I believe I'll get a job. A few days you're like working on the moon, but now you know you're gonna get a job, and the following day you're gonna ask yourself a question: am I sure I'm gonna get a job? At what point you even know people who are like co-finalists for a position, if you manage to get that? Being yourself is kind of dangerous. You need to put on your professorial garments, your professorial robe, to think like a professor. Now, what are the main responsibilities of academics at universities? Teaching, research, and service. Now, service is committee work, administrative work, things that would show that you're part of the life of the institution. Teaching is teaching. We all know teaching, and if you're in North America, you'd have taught. Now, the research component is the part that people don't understand. They just think it's about publishing. You need to publish 20 articles, 10 articles, 5 articles. I've got 2 publications. I've got XYZ publications. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but the number of publications you have as a graduate student on the job market is just one out of several research factors. You might have 10 publications, sometimes even solid ones, and still struggle in the job market. Because once again, the committee is seeking to recruit a colleague who has the capacity to succeed. And so part of what makes what people would see to think that, oh, this person has the capacity to succeed research-wise, is the quality of the publication matters more than the numbers. The quality of, so if you have 1 or 2 articles in a really, really top journal, do this exercise. If you can hear me, do this exercise. Take your department. I'm a historian. I go to the history department of every top university in the US, and I begin to read the CVs of their assistant professors. You'd be shocked. Sometimes they don't even have a single publication. Top schools. I'm talking Princeton, I'm talking Yale, I'm talking Harvard. Sometimes they don't even have more than 2. So sometimes it's about the quality of the work and not the quantity. Then number 2, for research, also, it's also about the kind of network that you have, research network. Of course, it also works for others. It's kind of the research network you have, the conferences you've attended, the kind of places you've presented your work, especially if you've had invited talks, and they are really, really good ones. Like if you've been invited to present at a major economic history seminar at Cambridge, for instance, if you're an economic historian, like the kind of outlets you go, the kind of visibility you get also matters sometimes more and becomes a testimony of the quality of your work, then perhaps the most important ones, the grants, the money that you've been able to bring in as a grad student, oh my God, it's I can't emphasize that enough. People think when they apply for a grant of $2,000 and they get it, but they see another grant of $2,000, but their budget was originally to say you want to come for LSA from the US and your budget is 2,500, and you saw one budget of 2,500 and you want it, but you see another one worth 2,500. You think, oh, I already have enough money, so I won't go for that. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Why don't you generate a side project along that conference that you're attending and then apply for that money? Like the number of grants you have, and especially when they are like major grants. I mean, you start from even if you start from 500, 1,000 before you get to the 10Ks, the 40Ks, the 50Ks, and all up and over you go. So it's important that the quality of research and the kind of network within which the research has been disseminated, the kind of conferences, the kind of environment, the kind of people who know the work. People who are decision makers need to be familiar with your work. And if you don't put yourself out there, they won't be familiar with your work. If you don't attend conferences, those conferences are expensive, but they are investments into your career. They are like, I mean, the ASA, for instance, is ridiculously expensive, especially for graduate students, but these are like critical investments into your career. And so basically, quality of publication, quality of where those work has been presented and the money you brought in, that's for research. I can't speak more on service, but please get into committees even whilst you're a graduate student. These things are not over sabi. They are like seriously important, especially if you are playing the long game for the US job market. Do it because you want to serve. Don't do it because you're just seeking a job, but get into these committees, serve, and obviously get good teaching evaluations. Those three components are like part of a broad structure, but they are like the three tripods stand on which other issues that will now come up, and I believe others would address it. How do you even write these letters? How do you write these statements? If you don't build on if you don't work on the foundation, no matter how brilliant your statement is, they will be lacking in the essential ingredients that would make you an outstanding potential hire. Thank you very much, and I apologize again for.
No problem. Thank you, Dr. Adebayo, for
if there are
your
questions, I would be happy to take them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And we know that you are disrupted by internet witches, so apologies for that. we understand. Thank you so much for that insightful on the grand kind of perspective. And then I think I took some point that I would like to share with my own graduate students. Thank you so much. The next, our next speaker is Dr. Ajayi Lowo. The floor is yours.
Greetings, everyone. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dr. Adebayo, for setting the pace. So I am really going to speak across like multiple themes that connect to these because there's just like really a lot to say. So I'll try to be short and just like speak through a lot of bullet points. And for me, like everyone who is like a grad student to preparing, or you're really now on the job market and all of that, I believe like everyone would find one or two things beneficial from what I'm about to share. So I'm Esther Ajayi Lowo, Assistant Professor, Comparative Women's Studies, Spelman College. Right, I know I've been introduced, but just in case someone missed that. So I would really like to start by emphasizing the point that there's really that need to start very early in your grad school experience, right? So if you're going to be in academia, you have to just start preparing, perhaps like from the first day of grad school. So there's really one kind of like really overemphasize that. So just start early, and starting early means trying to get teaching experience. If you have the opportunity, that would really be great. If you have the opportunity to teach a class or to be a graduate teaching assistant or graduate assistant, as the case may be, please try to make use of that opportunity. It's going to be it might be an additional work, depending on the kind of school that you are in. If they are not already prioritizing that, you might have to do additional work to be able to get that, but it will be a great way. If you have the opportunity to introduce a class and build it from the scratch and write your own syllabus, right? That would also be great, because all of those things will be preparing for that job market where you can confidently say you've had this teaching experience and you have this good teaching evaluation from your students. That will go a long way. And it really depends on school, because I know things are done differently. But if you're also in a school where maybe faculty members really usually don't come to your class to observe your class, if you have the opportunity to speak with someone who might observe and write you a letter, right, to really speak to your teaching expertise, that would also be great, because I had all of these things. And I think overall, everything comes together to really like give me that edge in getting this job. So if you don't have that opportunity, just put that on your list, right? So that you don't miss out on all of that, and try to do that. So that just a little bit about teaching, right? And then I'll move to service, thinking about starting early as well. So as grad students, as you know, you're maybe teaching, you're researching, and oftentimes we focus on wanting to research and publish, which is great, but also you want to, you know, volunteer and serve, and that can be something connected to your research interest. And this way, you're also preparing yourself ahead for that job that's connected to what you really love to do. And all of those things will be what you bring into your CV, you bring on the table, and you'll be able to speak to your experience doing all of that. It would also show how you're, you know, committed to service, which is one of the things you'll be evaluated by when you eventually get employed. So that's also great to be, you know, just putting ourselves out there to volunteer and serve. And so that would be like those two. And then the three would be research and publish, and be very strategic about that. Thinking ahead of the future, what you like to do, you might want to spread your tentacles, right? If that's what is obtainable, what's more marketable in your field, in your discipline. If in your discipline is one thing that, you know, focus, narrow, specific, that you really want to focus on, that would distinguish and stand you out. So basically what I'm saying is start early to think about your teaching, your service, and your research. How all of this tripod thing will build, right, your CV and all the things you will leverage on when you get on the market. So I'll quickly come back to service right now, and I'll connect that to really preparing for the job market. So I had the opportunity to sit on the search committee at my institution as a graduate student representative. So again, I had to apply and, you know, state all the reasons that I needed to be there and what that would mean for me when I get on the job market. It was a lot of work because we had like 118 applications for one particular job, and it's a teaching assistant professor, right? And that was really like mind blowing to know that, you know, this number of people apply for this one job, and we have to quickly go through their CVs, their cover letter, their, you know, statement of research interest, and all of that. So that tells me that a lot of work on the search committee members go into preparing and sieving through CVs, and you would have to be able to put your, best foot forward in all of these papers and all of these documents for yours to stand out. Because think about it, there's really no time. And then there's just a limited amount of time that anyone has to go through that number of applications. So when, for instance, on my part, and we also talked about it on the search committee afterwards. So if I'm looking at the first and second page and I'm struggling to really find what year did you get your PhD, or when exactly are you going to get it if you haven't got it, or, you know, what exactly is your field of study, right? What are you researching? If it's like all over the place and I have to struggle, sometimes I may drop it, not because I want to, but because I need to go to other one because there's a timeline, right? And then I have like all of these bullet points to really be able to check you. So first, second page, I'm sorry, I was done because I needed to go through everything. So your best foot forward. The first page should really have most of the important things. So your CV, for instance, like the first page I should know what school you're in, what field of study, what department, your research interests, and these basic things needs to be there. For your cover letter, your first paragraph should be so loaded to really draw me in, right? For me to even be able to move to the second paragraph and then maybe skim through the first topical sentences of the other paragraph and then move to the conclusion. Just for me to be able to get there. So just use that opportunity to know that when we're building these materials, we are building it for people who are going to really skim through, who have limited time to really read. And the same goes for your statement of philosophy, goes for your, depending on what they're asking for, your research statements, everything just needs to be top notch, like revise. If you have a peer or someone who is willing to proofread some of those things for you, that would be great. Have someone take a look at it, and it will be more beneficial with someone who is already familiar with your work and they can point you to, because sometimes we might really not know how best to sell ourselves, right? And I'm talking from a personal experience, right? So some peers might be able to like, oh, you said this, but right, this perhaps like needs to come forward. Oh, did you forget to put this? If the person is already familiar with your work, they might be able to do that job of peer reviewing and giving you a concrete feedback, right? So I will also talk about, link that to really building community, right? Being within like the community of people and peers who would support you in this process. And one of the great steps that anyone is taking is, if you're on the job market or preparing ahead for it, is just being part of this panel. So that is one way to prepare, right? Listen to people, be in community of other people who can guide you, can mentor. That is always really great. And so I would just like really move forward to thinking about the interview process itself. So being on that search committee also made me realize how like the committee members will think and what they're looking for, and how often sometimes you wonder, like, someone has all of these things, but not sure what happened. You have this great CV, this great cover letter, and then this person is there for the interview, and you're struggling to really connect what they're saying to what they've written or what really like captured your interest while you were reading their papers. So again, a lot needs to go into preparing for that interview. And today, so we're talking about like mock interview. That was really great. For me, on my part, that was very beneficial for me. So I built like on my experience being on the search committee while I was now on the job market trying to, which was like almost, just a few months apart. So that was really great for me. So I had a colleague, also a PhD candidate, who was willing to do the mock interview for me with me, and then gave feedback. I recorded it, so a lot went into that. I was able to listen back to myself and see some things that, oh, I knew I wanted to say this, but I missed it out. So it takes a lot of practice to be able to sit in front of the panel and be able to really like marshal your point. You don't have all the time to be able to say the very important and critical thing about your research, about your teaching, and about your service and advocacy, whatever you're doing. Because oftentimes we do a lot, and then to be able to summarize it and say them in 1 or 2 punchy sentences might take a lot of practice for us to really get there. So mock interviews are great. So I did that with a peer who gave good feedback. I did that with my dissertation advisor. I got us like, well, I really need you to do this with me. And feedback was really great, and so with that, I'm also like rehearsing and practicing. And I also got LSA big prof, Aderito, like, system, like, you need to listen to me, right? And then talk with him as well. So this, for me, like, were a critical part of my preparation process. Just knowing that there might be good candidates, but then coming for the interview, they might just like not perform as best as they would have, perhaps if they put in all of these efforts, rehearsing and getting ready. And I also think that seeking job in, say, US, Canada, and all of that, not America, is more like something that one needs to be familiar with, right? So I remember, like, being mentored around, like, what are they really looking out for? Because you're not American, of course. I mean, I'm assuming, right, like most of us, you're not American, you're African, you have your accent, you have your own thinking and reason of all of that. But sometimes for them, they think a little bit like, differently. So you have to be able to understand what goes on in their mind and what they're looking for, and how exactly to really like appeal to this audience. And also because like Dr. Adebayo said, they're looking for a colleague, right? And how for you to appear like a, not appear, but present yourself as a likable person that you'll be, as a good colleague that you will be when you eventually join them. So I think that was a really great for me. And be it like virtual or in person, on all of that, there's a need. We're going to do teaching demonstration, be mindful of the time, and stay focused on a particular topic. It might not be the best time to want to say or teach about something that is really broad, and then you're now like all over the place. And then be mindful of time. Think about what category of students you're teaching, make that clear. So this is prepared for undergraduate, or this is prepared for graduate. Be very specific, right? And have your slides all put together, right? And then also think a little bit about researching about people who are at that school, your employer, the school, or people who will be on the panel. Know a little bit about them, right? So when you're getting there, you're not really speaking to, complete strangers, but you have an idea and maybe what they would like to hear, what they're doing, and how that connects with yours, and what you will bring into that institution, right? And I don't know how much time I have. My timer just craned out. So that would really be a great way to do that, because you're joining them. And also, one of the questions I would always ask is, about your strengths and your weakness, which is always like a very tricky question, because we tend to be like, oh, we don't have weaknesses, but you have to think ahead of that. So what do you think is a weakness? And then the way to do that, which I think is great from my experience on the search committee, and just someone also was interviewed, will be to think about your strengths. And think about how when that particular strength is stretched to a limit or just beyond the border a little bit, might become a weakness, right? And so that might be how to talk about your weakness without making it sound so negative and people are like, ooh, red flag. We really don't want that. So we have to be really crafty about that, right? So it's not like, oh, okay, I think this is my weakness. So you think about your strength and then think about what happens if it's stretched out of limits. And then when you talk about your weakness, also talk about how you've been building on that and how you're consciously, right, really working on that. So it's not just to drop it there and leave it in limbo, because sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we don't want you here, but it might be able to say that differently, and that would have been a great point. And also, research about that institution and prepare to ask questions, prepare to ask intelligent questions. I think we had one great candidate, and I think the only reason that we dropped the candidate was because when they were asked to speak about, to ask the questions they asked were, I don't know what happened, but that was just, and the search committee members like kind of unanimously agreed that was so off. But on my part, I think that they probably were not prepared for that particular question. So instead of asking about, so what would you really like me to, bring in? What is more important for you? So I've read all of these things that you require for this job position, but I was wondering, in addition to that, do you really need something from me specifically to bring on board, right? Ask about something that is really not clear on their website about your program that you like to know more about. So those are like great ways to ask questions. So just thinking about that. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. And I know that we're going to be having question and answer, and then we can speak to some other things. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Ajailo, for sharing these very interesting perspectives with us. Very, very helpful. It's like a very good guide, things to really write down and share with several people. Now, I'm going to move to the third speaker, but I don't think Dr. Akande is here. Dr. Akande is supposed to be our third speaker. Is he here? I'm not seeing him. If not, then I will go to Dr. Alozie. That means we'll have more time for audience participation. Dr. Alozie is in the Department of Black Studies, Portland State University. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's a privilege to be with you all here. And please call me Bright. Esther, when I learned that you joined Spellman, I was really happy because one of the 8 offers I received from universities across North America. Spelman College was year one, key one, and I was so excited, but I had to go for one I thought suited my career and interest the most. So in the history department, Spelman College. So got my heart. So it's really a pleasure to talk to us on this platform, and Damilola and Esther did a great job in leading us through this conversation. What I will do is to give you all a schedule list of sorts of how I navigated my own process. I believe I was very successful to secure multiple positions. I had about 8. I discussed with Sahid about this earlier when I got these opportunities. And at some point, it was a case of which do I select from? Like, it was just a lot. And which position suits my career the most, which offers me the best opportunity to progress. And of course, you also have to consider the money factor. So swallowing the bag. But really, I reckon with the success I had in the job hunt, in the job market from 2020. At the same time, I reckon with the rejections I had, because of the 8, I know I had twice the number of rejections, right? But ultimately, it's that success that we always talk about. So here is what I did from 2020. Just before then, actually, before I graduated my program, I finished my dissertation, I started to think about the job market. For context, I had a teaching experience under my belt. Way back in 2009, I did lecture at the University of Nigeria. I graduated and was retained then, a few years before I left. So I've worked my way through teaching. At the same time, I was intentional to keep that track of teaching so I can keep amassing a ton of teaching experience. And by the time I finished my program, I had decided whether I wanted to be in a college or a university. Even if it was a university, what kind of university am I going to be at? Is it a research institution or is it a teaching institution? I had to know what I wanted. So I think this is one of the first things you consider. Of course, you have to consider where do you want to live? Is your preference urban? Is your preference rural? Is your preference suburban? In any case, what matters is to get a job, right? But I factored some of these things in and looked around job hunting websites. May I ask that, you should make this job hunting websites your partner the moment you get into candidacy for your doctoral program. And by candidacy, I mean you have passed your coursework for North American universities. You've passed your coursework and you are now full-time into research, right? So just like 2 years into your finishing your dissertation, all things being equal, please really, if you want to be in academia, focus on that. Start, carving your mindset around that kind of goals and aspirations. Then again, you have to also think about if I want to go into the academia, faculty position, what kind of position? Do not leave it late to see whether you want a tenure track position or know the difference between a tenure track position, a non-tenure position, and a visiting assistant professorship position. That's a VAP, right? Know this. Is it part-time? Is it adjunct? I did receive a couple of VAP positions, which I didn't take because I knew what I wanted. Then I made a list of where I can get these adverts, how it's been advertised, within a specific discipline. Is it also time bound? You can check out this site, of course. Higher Ed is number one. The Times of Higher Education, Chronicle of Higher Education, Indeed.com, MLA Job Information. I think these are the basic. University Affairs is basically for Canada. But please get acquainted with this. If possible, set up a notification. Just structure the website according to your field and surrounding field so that you could get, from time to time, you get updates about, oh, there's a new job alert, you know, can I apply for this and all that. Now, here was my timetable. I started thinking of the job market, like securing a position in 2018, 2 years before I graduated my program. I started to make sure my professors knew me well, you know. Of course, I tried to set a good record in research, but beyond that, I had to make sure that they really knew me beyond my dissertation committee. The reason being that the more they talk well about you, the more outstanding you are, the better chances you also stand of getting a great recommendation, because that counts a lot. The recommendation letter is like the professors are selling you, you know, to the institution that will hire you. And yes, I started to work my way through attending conferences and being active in these conferences and publishing. An advantage I had was that I was in the academia, you know, already. So I had published earlier before I started my program anyways. But I didn't stop at that. So I kept on publishing. And to Damilola's point, that is more about the quality of your publication than the quantity. I'll tell you something. When I applied for my program, when I applied for the job market, I had about 9 publications, but 2 were very outstanding. Every place that hired me talked about this too. One was something about women and petition writing, but it was not even the publication itself that drew attention. It was the summary article I wrote about the publication on women and petition writing and on naked protest in Nigeria by women. So I did a summary for the Conversation Africa, and almost every committee that hired me talked about it. Why? It became one of the most read summary articles. Currently, it has over 60,000 reads. It really piqued their interest, you know. So it was more about the quality. And when they read the summary, they said, oh, it made them go to read the main article. And for me, those became my standout publications as a grad student, you know, as an up and coming researcher. So please think about it. It's really about that quality. And go to conferences, network, make sure they know about you. The reason I'm saying this is because a few LSA members here have met them through conferences, and surprisingly, I just learned that one of the LSA members actually was one of the committee members who read my work, who read my application. I was like, this is a very outstanding publication. I've seen this person present papers at conferences, and he's very active. My point being that it's not just about going to conferences. Please, also, in addition to that, as you go to conferences, discuss, your progress with acquaintances you make at academic events. Let them know of this. And you have to also discuss this with your advisor, your doctoral advisor. I did it myself. And I was intentional about getting teaching experience, but at the same time, I needed to diversify my teaching experience. Before I left Nigeria, I had been focused mainly on African history, teaching imperialism and all of that. For the first time in my graduate program, I had to teach world history, and it really exposed me to a ton of experience and new pedagogy and new teaching philosophy than what my initial or mainstream African history experience has exposed me to. And by the time I finished, I had very excellent evaluations from students about my teaching, particularly world history. So if, for instance, you are a doctoral student or candidate right now in African history, please take the challenge to teach a world history class. It's really gonna help you. And I would also, one other thing I did was to prepare my CV ahead of time, because that would really, when you start the market, it is gonna be a tough space. And from time to time, you have to adjust both your cover letter, your CV, your research interest, your diversity statement to suit a particular institution. So I was very intentional about that. And I continued to, as I was applying, I was adjusting and making, once I had an update, I added it immediately because I couldn't use an application I made, the same application or CV I used like 6 months earlier for one 6 months later. So that was very important to me. I made sure I had an Interfolio dossier account. Please get it. Get it. It is important because a ton of universities these days will request that you just send your documents via Interfolio. Please, the website should be interfolio.com. Just have that account. And most of the times, hiring universities would sponsor or fund such accounts, so it will be easier. You don't really have to pay. So personally, on my journey, as I started about 2 years before, a year into in 2019, I knew I was gonna be on that track to finish my program a year later. So I actively started to apply. And the reason I started this early was because I wanted to test the waters. I want to feel what rejection was like, even though I wasn't exactly, ready. So, and when I received offers, received first time offer to come, let's talk about this. I was, wow, this was not the rejection I thought, So gradually started to prep me. And I knew that given COVID, a lot of hiring committees would take so much time, the faculty was swamped and all of that. So I decided to apply. Frankly, I applied to over 30 institutions. So please, I would say this thing, you have to apply and apply and apply. And in some cases, you will get to the first stage, get to the second stage, even almost get to the third stage. Sometimes it could be disappointing to you. But I believe that in the path of success are many hurdles, which would, like rejection, right? So it is part of the process. I don't think Akin will tell us here now that his position at this stage has all been 100% successful. All papers he's applied to, he's gotten everything. I think as young academics and junior faculty, who has succeeded in this, it also came at the back of so many rejections. And sometimes, as I got to learn, some of these rejections were not necessarily because we are not excellent or outstanding in your field. Perhaps, just perhaps, someone fits the interest of the department most or best. So I factored that in. I was looking for my offer or making my applications. Then there was the case of, what do I really want to do? Service, Edgar talked about service. I built a record of service in my school. And over time, I delivered guest lectures almost every year, or like between 2016 and 2020. Every Black History Month period, I delivered a guest lecture. I have a Twitter mentorship, which I mentioned in my CV. I was part of the admissions committee, as well to kind of select international admission candidates and all that. So that record of service really helped. And intentionality with seeking grants and fellowships and all. Look, even the ones I got to the final stage, I added in my CV to show that I was active, I wanted a challenge and all that. And I was successful in some, but a lot of applications for grants, I wasn't successful. I even mentioned it because it shows your active interest, especially in a research institution. And lastly, I would say just know what you want and get ready for it. Of the offers I got, I decided to settle for Portland State. Now, mine is tricky, and I will say this lastly. I studied history. I got 2 of my degrees in Nigeria, and while I was doing my PhD, I got another degree in the University of Liverpool. But I settled for Black Studies department. Do not restrict yourself alone to history if the market becomes tight for you, so to speak. And the reason I did that is because I'm still a faculty with history department, but I believe that being the African scholar in Black Studies gave me an upper hand than a ton of offers I got in history department. And then because I had a record of service, my offer came with the position of a directorship position. I'm like, whoa, that was the first directorship position I'm getting, I'm going to go for it. right? So, and at the same time, I tried to read the details of the positions I was applying to. This particular position entailed that in my base department, I'll still be supporting the history department. I was integrated immediately into the graduate program of the history department, which for me was a win-win. So my point being that be intentional about researching the institution you are going to. Be intentional about what you really want. Know a lot of professional jargon in the job hunting market. Some I got to know when I was doing my search. Others I had known already. So just know some of these details, and I think flesh out your objective and what you're looking for, and put in your best. And when you are doing your dissertation writing, be sure to indicate when you're going to finish. And there's nothing wrong at all with applying for a job, a year before you complete your dissertation. In fact, that's how most of us, or all of us, did, by the way. So I'm happy to also, with my colleagues, take further questions as they arise. Dr. Bundiran, are you there? Akin seems not to be here.
Okay.
Oh,
I think I'm back now. This is doing sege. I don't know why. Excuse my Ibadan language there. Okay, thank you so much, Bright. I'm sorry I missed the last 30 seconds of your presentation, but I was really enjoying it as well. Thank you so much. Now we have all the three speakers. They've shared their thoughts with us. Let me go back to the charts. One thing Dr. Alozie was asking me was kind of making reference that even for those of us who may consider ourselves, or people consider us as senior academics, yes, we have moments of rejection, and we also have moments of acceptance. But the way I look at this job process is about fit. That it's not a rejection; it's a matter of fit. Because you are also interviewing the people who are interviewing you, so it's not one-way direction. And so once you have that positive mind that as they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them, because they may give you everything that you think you need. But if that environment is going to be toxic for you, if that environment is not going to make you grow, if it's not going to nurture you, I will not encourage you to be there. So you are also interviewing people and see how the dynamics works before you actually get into that kind of space. It could be one of the Ivy League school, but if the Ivy League school is going to make your life miserable, I would recommend that you pause and think carefully about it. So okay, now we have so let's give a round of applause wherever we are for these wonderful three presenters. Thank you so much for sharing all these thoughts with us. We have 30 minutes, so that's good for comments and questions from members of the audience. I have a question here from Samsung A72. Who says, thanks, Dr. Bright. What is the difference between college and university in America? I mean, in the USA, I believe. That's what it's referring to.
Should I take it?
Yes, please do.
Okay. A college is basically a smaller institution compared to university that offers undergraduate degrees. There are also types of colleges. There's liberal arts college, community college, and junior colleges, and some of these provide 2-year degrees or an associate degree. Most colleges, like almost all offer degree programs and all that. Most do not have graduate programs. I think Spelman is one of those outstanding ones that have a graduate program. So, but a university is more typically larger institution that offers a variety of undergraduate, professional, graduate degree programs. I think that's the one basic difference. And then for the colleges are pretty much teaching oriented, compared to universities that are more teaching and significantly research oriented. But even in the universities, there are still categories of universities, R1, R2 universities, in terms of what they focus on their research. But those are the basic differences.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that clarification. The college tends to be smaller in size than the university, and as Dr. Alose said, a college traditionally focuses on teaching. That doesn't mean they don't do research. They do research as well, but they focus on teaching. That means they have more resources for hands-on tutoring of students. Typical what you will see even in large universities in the UK, like Cambridge, at the college level. They do that. At the university level, they teach. At the college level, they do more of tutoring. That is so. In the US, we have colleges that stand alone that do that, and they have universities that also do research. Okay. Any other question from the members of the audience? Okay, also another question from Ellen Uga. I'm sure. I'm sorry, I'm in an hotel room. Someone is banging on my door. So I'm going to ignore that banging. So I just go ahead and ask a question. I may mute myself later. Dr. Alose, you made mention of Black studies. Is it different from African studies?
Yes, it is. It is remarkably different. Black studies in many universities is also known as Africana studies. So basically, it's an interdisciplinary field that primarily focuses on the study of history, the study of culture, the study of politics, understanding the entire experiences of African peoples and African descended peoples in the diaspora. However, African studies is a core component. African history is a core component of Black studies. And this is where, for instance, my position as an assistant professor of Black studies is most relevant, because you cannot study Black studies without studying about Africa, where it all started from. So yeah, that's basically the difference for the most part. And I know that also this is now more of a technical stuff, or over time, African studies now, especially originating from Africa, have come to encompass, deeper studies of the diaspora. But just in that basic definition, there is Black studies or Africana studies, and there is African studies.
Thank you. Thank you for that here. And this question is from Maruf Mudashiru, I believe. Good presentations. Please, at what stage of your dissertation can one start to seek employment? This Dr. Adebayo or Dr. Ajaelo can answer this question. At what stage of your dissertation can one start to seek employment?
Right. So I would really like to take that question, because as someone who already got a job offer, but still working on my dissertation, right? And had a few months to really, burn the night candles, and not literally because I was writing in America, but yes. So I think for me, what it was, okay, so I have, completed my interviews, and now I am, analyzing my data and starting to write. And I saw this job advert that really suits my research and advocacy and teaching interests, all bundled together. And I was like, oh, okay, this is so apt. It seems someone just saw all I've been doing and just wrote this for me. So it was really hard to keep pushing back, what I need to focus on my dissertation, because I was trying not to be distracted, right? So I was like, oh, okay. But at some point, I'm like, this seems to be for me. And I was just willing to try to get all my documents ready. So I wanted to have this opportunity to write, revise my CV and write my cover letter, write my teaching philosophy, and send it in and just see what all of that is worth, right? So at some point I thought, well, even if nothing comes out of it, it's an opportunity to build my materials and document for the job market. But alas, I got a call for the interview, and that was how all of that started. So this comes back also around that you really need to start early, because if I had not like really planned, started early, being on that job committee and, being so involved in my school, like, planning campus-wide events and also seeking funding and getting funding, the AAUW, Social Science Research Council, and also was recommended for funding for NSF and all of that, even though I didn't eventually get that, a lot of things happened. So all of that, if I didn't plan all of that, if I was waiting to maybe get to a stage in my dissertation and then thinking of the job market, I wouldn't have perhaps had that chance to even be called at all. So it's really good to start earlier. And so maybe when you're already writing your job interview, even if it means to just build these materials and apply. So for me, I would still be content. It would still be good if I wasn't even called, but I was willing to just try, right? And just send it in. So you never can tell. So when you're writing, just start also trying. It's hard to juggle it, but try as much as possible to start early. Don't wait until you're done with your dissertation. Don't wait until you're writing the final chapter, right? As long as you're on it, you're already a candidate and you're writing your dissertation, you can also start to try out your earnings on the job market and start building it. And then you can keep improving on it, right? So that's what I'll just say to that.
Thank you, thank you. I'm sorry, my technological skills are being challenged now. I understand there are some panelists who want to ask questions, and I'm looking for them. I can't see them. Maybe I'm showing my age here. I'm a post-Zoom kind of, pre-Zoom kind of person. So, can you help me out here, LSA conference, my good people there, to call on the people? Okay, I think I figured it out. Yes. Oh, yes, I made it. Victor Olaoye, I see your hand up. Do you have any question, comments?
Am I here?
Please make it brief so that we can go around. We have many people here who want to ask questions.
Okay. I'm Victor Olaoye. My question is this. PhD holders from Europe, how did they bust into the job, the North American job market? Can you hear me? Hello?
Please repeat the question.
I said PhD candidates from Europe, how do they bust into the job market in North America? Like what are these strategic things to do, the do's and don'ts?
I will give that to Dr. Adebayo, obviously.
It's an important question, really, and my experience and those of many other people have actually shown that it's a myth that the US tend to prefer. Well, they do tend to prefer people trading the US, but it's actually a myth that people cannot get jobs in the US from non-North American universities. I've seen people, in fact, at the risk of even going beyond my limit here, and I'm trying to scroll through the charts to be sure that I'm not. I've even seen people with African PhDs getting positions in North America. Not even European PhDs, African PhDs, Nigerian PhDs, South African PhDs. Getting good schools, top schools in North America. So it's again a function of integrating everything that has been said so far and playing the long game. You might have been playing the long game unintentionally, like in other words, you might have been doing your research well, you might have been active in campus life, you might have been teaching well, you might not have been thinking about the job market, but if you are really serious about the job market, you also have to think critically about it and also get yourself into that network, get yourself into that the system that you want to work at. I've been attending conferences in the US since my PhD days. I've done research in the US. I did a research at the World Bank Archives in DC. I've also been getting involved with people in my field in that setting. And also, you cannot underestimate the network of your advisor or your supervisor, as it were, as well. People don't talk about that. People don't even talk about one aspect that I don't think anyone talked about is also the implication of where you're getting your PhD. Not the reputation of the school per se, but the reputation of the program where you're getting your PhD from. People did not talk about that, but that's more like a difficult topic to address because you need to like have the time to be nuanced. The reputation of the program and also as well as the reputation of the supervisor, because it's critical in the field when you're writing letters for you. If your advisor is someone that everybody dislikes, God, I mean, you're only going to get to the school where people like that person. But that's a story for another day. The point is that coming from Europe is not a disadvantage. Just ensure that you have a teaching opportunity. If you have to fight for it, so the scholarship that I got that is usually given in most European universities are what they call fellowships in the US. Fellowships are what you get and you don't have to teach and you just do research. But that's the standard package in most European universities. You don't have to teach. And if you teach, it's extra funding, extra money. And it's usually competitive. Oh God, I fought for it. It was more like I was fighting to teach, like fighting for an opportunity to teach. It's an advantage, right? Because for my colleagues in the US, I realized that especially at for those who are working at schools where they have to teach a lot, it sometimes affects their research time. But for me, on the other extreme, where I'm not required to do any teaching, so I had to fight for an opportunity to teach, and thankfully I got it. So that's important. So you need to check those boxes, and I'm already naturally active in campus life. So from my even master's days, as a master's student, I've been sitting on such committees, job search committees. So it's really like once you do that naturally and your research is out there, your work is out there, it's now a matter of time and chance. I mean, so it all becomes a matter of time and chance. I'm not going to promise you that because you've done all of that, you're going to get a job. I know people who are far better than that's why I'm always introducing the element of gratitude, because I know people who are far, far better than I am. But for one reason or the other, they try, they put in their very best, but it doesn't work out. And it may not work out, and then sometimes the successes, sometimes they're not. But at least from your own end, once you've done everything that you need to do, then everything then remains in the hands of the committee, the question of fit. So if you are also the perfect fit for that topic that you're working on, it doesn't matter whether you're in Leiden, in the Netherlands, or in Germany, or you're at Free State, South Africa, or Witwatersrand, you're going to get a job. That's the truth. I've seen that happening time and time again. If you're the best fit, you're already publishing in the same arena where they're publishing, you're already attending the same conferences. You can't sit in Geneva or in Cambridge and expect people in the US to know your work. It doesn't work that way. The US, especially in Canada, is quite insular, if I can offer that as a critique. So you need to get into that system and ensure that they know your work, they're familiar with your work, and you're already presenting where they're presenting, you're already also publishing, and you're also looking for money, always looking for money, always applying for funds, always. There's nothing like it's too much. Some people who are successful tend to think it's too much. You always have to keep applying, keep getting it, and keep networking, keep asking questions in this kind of setting, and hoping for the best, hoping that your research topic would be fascinating enough to the committee for them to invite you to the campus visit where the board would entirely be in your court. Yeah. And also keep hoping that you're not a substitute candidate. It's a dangerous thing that people don't also talk about. Just hope that you're not a substitute. In other words, like you're not someone that they're trying to use to reinforce someone else's candidacy. Like just hope for the best. Hope very optimistic. Pessimism reflects in writing. People don't realize that. Pessimism reflects in, if you're optimistic, it has a way of, you can communicate optimism with the kind of verbs you're using, with the kinds of adjectives you're using. It's psychological in a way. I can't explain it. I'm not a professional, but I can tell, something like that. Especially, anyways, because also remember that you're coming from Europe and competing. In my case, I'm not even Canadian. I'm not even a Canadian permanent resident. So it just blows my mind. Sometimes I still look at myself like, how did I even do it? But I'm grateful because everyone I talk to, even the first thing they say, oh, I remember your job talk. You said, I remember this. And oh my God, I'm not sure whether anyone talked about rehearsals. It wasn't my first time on the job market. It wasn't my first time at the campus visit when I went to York, but I did like 4 different rehearsals. It wasn't my first time. I already had a tenure track position, but I still did like 4 different rehearsals. Like even the likes of Professor Rington were there, my friends were there, my colleagues, and it was a diverse community. Like my community of friends, both in Europe, even my advisor, some of my colleagues, and they gave me critical feedbacks. One of which is that I talk too fast whenever I'm excited. That I have to slow down, and I incorporate it. Amongst other stuff, and also it also gives you the chance to run your PowerPoints, to run your slides, just in case there's a transitional flaw. Like there's a flaw in your transition that you didn't plan for, because all those little triggers can set you off balance when you're doing. Anyways, the point is just that once you do everything that you're supposed to do and you check the boxes, it doesn't matter whether you're in South Africa or whether you're at Ibadan, honestly, or whether you're at in Germany or in Switzerland. If you're the best fit for that job at that point in time, and you're not like a subsequent candidate, and everything works in your favor, you're going to get the job, because I've seen that happening even in countries where they say they only prioritize their own citizens and the permanent residents. I've seen that happening. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adebayo, for that. We have another question from Belumi Folajimi. Let me just read it. In this age of job competitiveness, what do you have to say about US PhD graduates who are unable to get jobs in universities? That's a loaded question. I'm not sure who among you can want to take it, because we do have that as well. We do have some colleagues who are struggling to land that tenure track position.
I could offer a theoretical position, a theoretical point. Theoretical because I haven't experienced that. And the theoretical point would be the later chapters of The Professor is In actually deals with that. The later chapters of the book that we've talked about, The Professor is In, dealt with they call it alt-AC, alternative academic jobs, or alternative jobs. It's usually alt-AC careers, like alt-AC careers. If you also read that, I think, because for instance, it depends on the field where you are at. For those in English language or related literary fields, they might be considering opportunities in media. For those in archaeology, might be considering opportunities in museum and heritage. Obviously, for archaeologists, in museums is more like big deal, because they also keep doing research, especially if it's a research position at museums. It's even better because they don't have teaching, just spend all their time doing their research and doing admin work with that organization. And for historians, for instance, you find people working in public history offices in the US, for instance. I've even seen people working with grants-making organizations. Some people even decide that that's what they want. They don't want to work at universities. They want to work with, and all of a sudden you see someone becoming a senior fellow at SSRC or Rockefeller Foundation, and they're making far more money than you are making as an academic. So, and they even enjoy their lives, and many of them keep publishing on the side, So it's a psychological game, and this is why it's also important to get your PhDs done as quickly as is reasonable, not possible. As reasonable and within the framework of your institution. Because if you spend 10 years thinking about academia, it is difficult to break that mind game that you've been playing. If you spend 10 years doing something, it becomes your life. So you would, in fact, some people would prefer a tenure track position paying 50,000 over a non-academic position that will pay 80K, because at that stage it's become part of their identity. Like, in the professional can no longer be separated from personal. So it's important that you watch out for that as well. Even if you're spending a short period of time, it's not necessarily a question of time, but the longer you spend in grad school, the more attached you become.
We have 10 minutes to go. I'm sorry, we have 10 minutes to go. Less. Yes, thank you. I am looking around here to make sure we answer all the folks' questions that are here. Let me just add to this that for those of us in the humanities and social sciences, even those in the sciences too, we must think about flexibility. Your PhD does not define your scholarly trajectory for life. In fact, it's just the beginning. And you may end up not teaching in the same field where you got a PhD. LSA just mentioned that. I am a good example of that. I did my PhD in archaeology, and my first job is in the history department. I moved voluntarily to African studies. I don't know where I will move tomorrow. So, and I think it's in the humanities, the tendency, in fact, is for many institutions to think about your flexibility, adaptability, interdisciplinary. They want you to do many things because money is scarce. So they get you, they want you to do 2-3 things. And we all have to be very adaptive. And frankly, it's not that difficult. Once you are able to have the foundation that is needed to be able to make a case, why your degree is in history, but you fit very well in Black studies, or why your degree may be in anthropology, and I can make that case that I belong to history as well. So, but it's not just a matter of making an empty claim. Of course, you must have something to back it up. That is where the intentionality comes in as a graduate student, that you're already thinking ahead, and I think Dr. Ajailo said the same thing, Dr. Alozie said the same thing. Being intentional and planning right from your first year in graduate school is very important. So Adebayo mentioned it, which conference to go to, and your network must not just be your committee. All reach to people in your field or even in the cognate fields. Make friends with them. Send them email. Don't wait until you see them at the next conference. When you see them at the conference, make yourself known to them. Introduce yourself. When you return home back to your campus, send them email. I'm supporting you, or I see your presentation. And thank you so much. I read your work. Find time to have coffee with them. Half of it is social networking as well. It's not just what you've published. It's also the social network that your faculty, that your supervisor opened up for you, and that you also cultivated yourself. Some of us did not have the privilege of supervisor giving us opportunities. We actually have to cultivate that network. So all of these things are important, and they are very important in the process of looking for any position, not just a tenure track position. I think that is, unless one of the speakers has final 1 minute wrap up. Yes, Dr. Alozie?
I think just 2 questions I saw that addressed to me, I think is relevant as well. Maruf, in addition to the question of publication as suggested by Dr. Bright, is it a publication from the dissertation or other publications? While your mainstream research should focus your dissertation, in fact, you might be so into this dissertation writing that you won't have as much time to delve into other aspects of research. So if you can get a preliminary finding publication from your research, that would be awesome. You can juggle, another little deviation from your dissertation and make another publication. I know when I finished, I had, published 3 articles that were slightly away from my mainstream dissertation. And because I had in mind to actually publish my dissertation as a monograph right away, so I was careful how much of my dissertation content I was going to publish as an article. In fact, I only published 1, and that 1 chapter was a quarter of the entire chapter, and eventually it blew up, so to speak. So the point is, if you can extract a preliminary finding from your dissertation and publish, good and fine. Just make it a statement publication, so to speak. So original quality and all that. Then lastly, Matthias said the publications you argue that counts for an applicant in the job market. Is it the articles published before or after graduation? Definitely it has to be before you graduate, because if you have any publication in the works, in the pipeline, so to speak, upon graduation, just mention it to your CV. Let the committee know that you're also working on this, but do not kind of exaggerate what is not there. If you don't have a publication going in, do not say you do. If you're working on something, just be as truthful as you can. But if you manage to get 1 or 2 publications, before you graduate, that is awesome. And I believe also that even before you get when you start applying, before you finish your program, even Matthias, I think I know you have some publications even before you start your PhD program. This could count as well for you. Just like an active interest in research, really, really is a key thing. And not just about that publication, but also generally, look into your service commitment and your teaching as well. Because the publication, as Damilola pointed out, is just an aspect of the many factors they're going to consider. In the end, it's the quality that matters, not the number of publications that you have, at least from my experience and from colleagues' experiences too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, we are running out of time. Yeah, please, 20 seconds. Dr. Adebayo, want to say something?
I mean, you must also develop commercial awareness. It's called, in other words, you should in law, it's called commercial awareness. You need to know the people who are getting jobs in your field and what they've done. Read people's CVs. When you Google scholars and you read their CVs, it's not stalking, it's research. Like, you need to know. If I ask you who is the person in your field, who is the recent hire in your field at XYZ University, you should know as a matter of, like, it's not a matter of research or like cramming or anything. No, you should just know. Like, you should know the people who are working in your field and what they've done to get there. For those with publicly available CVs, that would also tell you what you need to do, how to work.
Okay.
Obviously, it won't tell you the entire story, but it would give you.
I'm sorry, we have to.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We have to leave because I'm sure that members of the fact that we have 46 people still hanging around shows that people are really interested in this. And I'm sure that the panelists will be able to take comments or questions by email. You have their names, you can Google them and find them. I want to use this opportunity to thank all of you who are here, the panelists, as well as the members of the attendees and the LSA organizers for giving us this platform to discuss this very, very important topic. Thank you so much for joining us. And on that note, I'm going to sign out. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.